currently the SEC standings, Bama 9-2, Auburn, South Carolina 9-3, Tennessee 8-3, and then you have Florida and Kentucky at 7-4. So right now, Mark, as we look at it in the SEC, if you had to make a bet in the futures market, who would be your pick right now to win the SEC regular season title?
I know you like Tennessee, but I think Auburn, there's a ton of value there at that number. I don't want to take Alabama at the short number, so I think I'd probably side with Auburn. They got Kentucky on Saturday. I'm probably going to be jamming them there, probably going to be jamming team total over, maybe even full game over with Kentucky's defense. There'll be numbers that I'll be looking at to see if I can get a position there. I think they should have a lot of success. They can pull up and shoot from anywhere on that defense. So, but I think the value perspective, listen, I know Florida playing well lately. A lot of people think they have potential, but I really think it's probably going to come down to one of those three teams, either Alabama, Tennessee, or Auburn. And I'm just a little bit more confident in Auburn than I am in Tennessee.
Now, I agree with you. See, here's the thing about Auburn. If you're betting them, they're not going to lose at home, right? So you can count all those remaining home games as a win. The road games is when it'll get tricky. Now, they do have to go to Knoxville and play Tennessee. That's probably going to be a loss. But then they're at Georgia and they're at Missouri. Missouri is the worst team in the SEC. Georgia's slumping. They should win both of those games. Bama, I mean, Mark, you said it. Like, outside of finishing the year against Arkansas, they got some tough games. Home against A&M, home against Florida. Then they're at Kentucky, at Ole Miss, home against Tennessee, and at Florida as well. Probably going to drop two of those three road games, and then I would think they're probably going to lose one of those home games as well. Whereas, again, I think if Auburn, if they just lose to Tennessee, as long as they take care of their business at home, I think they'll be in a good spot. One of those home games is against one of those games is against Tennessee on the road. But as long as they take care of business at home, win the other road games, I think they will be in a good spot. Tennessee's also got a difficult schedule remaining, and they have dropped some games at home this year. They do have to still play at Bama, obviously, at South Carolina, and then they have to play Kentucky at home to end the year as well. Still have to play Texas A&M, who was preseason picked to finish towards the top of the conference. So they got some tough games coming up as well. I'm with you. Even though I still think Tennessee's the best team, I think the way the schedule shapes up, I think it favors Auburn, and I like their price at plus 250.
How do you see the SEC shaping up, and do you think there's any value on any of these teams right now?
Yeah, I think that Auburn's the best team. Like, their peak is just awesome, but I don't know if they've really found that consistency yet. I think South Carolina, we're kind of all waiting for them to drop off, and going on the road and losing at Auburn isn't necessarily surprising. Getting 40-pieced, that's not necessarily the greatest sign. But this league, it just feels like whoever's going on the road, it's just your turn to get thrashed. Like, hey, Alabama, it's your turn. You're going to go on the road. You're going to get thrashed at Tennessee. Tennessee, you're going to go on the road. It's your turn to get thrashed by Texas A&M. Auburn, you're going to go on the road. You're going to get whooped too. So that just feels like how this league is. I still think that Tennessee finds a way to get this one done and win the league. I've been on Tennessee early as the team that win it. I just – something with Alabama, I can't quite get there. I know people are talking about the defense, but I still think with this group, it's like they're a little too reliant on those threes every single night. I wish they got a little bit more rim pressure for me. And that's kind of the one thing that I keep going back to with them. They leave me wanting a little bit too much. And so I'm probably going to end up, with I think Tennessee is the best team in the league. But, even another one too is Florida. Like, I have them 90-1. I got them a couple weeks ago to win the league. They have a really soft schedule to close the season. If they take care of business, if you're looking for a long shot with everybody's vulnerable in this league. I think Florida is a group that could really start playing together well, and they have such a soft schedule to close it. So they just need a little bit of luck. They have all the talent in the world. They just need a little bit of luck, and they could find themselves right in the race in the last week or two. 16.5 feels like a lot. This is a Minnesota team that has the size to stick with Zach Edey. I don't know if I can lay it, though, just because sometimes Minnesota's half-court offense scares me a bit, especially on the road, too, where Purdue plays at a different level. For me, I'm looking at the props market. I look at Fletcher Lawyer over 1.5 threes. This is one of those times in the year where I think numbers start lying to you. You get used to it in the grind. You're starting to see all the same numbers. Well, all year long, Minnesota's done a great job of taking away threes. But lately, things have started to pivot a little bit. So you're going to look at their numbers and they're going to say, oh, they're 12th nationally in allowing the fewest threes per attempt throughout this year. But lately, we've seen Peyton Sandford had 8 attempts, Jaden Aiken 7 attempts, Ty Berry 8 attempts from 3, Zach Hicks 6 attempts from 3, Max Klesman 5 attempts from 3. Those are all like those lead shooters. So I think, Minnesota is going to probably bring the double tonight against Zach Edey. Fletcher Lawyer shooting over 43% from 3 this year. We've seen him have some big time numbers. If he gets on that same like trend where he's getting 5, 6, 7, 8 attempts like some of these other top shooters, I think he goes over and knocks down a couple threes tonight.
Duke did this last year too, like middle of February. They started to hit their stride. They went on a big winning streak. They won the ACC tournament. So they kind of get hot towards this time of the year. I do think Duke is worth a play here at plus 250 to win the ACC.
I couldn't agree more, PJ. When I size up UNC and Duke, if you're getting the best effort, the best version of each team, I think I like Duke better. And I think that's really been Duke's issue this year. Is there just been some games where they just look, I don't know if it's lethargic or apathetic, but you're not getting the consistent effort that you would expect from Duke. And with UNC, do you think that, the regression on defense, is that because of teams just are kind of caught up to what they're doing?
Yeah, I think so. I think so a little bit because, they were so good early on in the year. They were working in all these transfers, right? They had Cormac Ryan coming from Notre Dame, Harrison Ingram coming for Stanford. So even though RJ Davis and Armando Bacot have been there a while, to your point, like there wasn't a lot on film. Like teams didn't see how those guys were integrated in a North Carolina offense. And then obviously as you get into the second half of conference play, teams have a bunch of film at that point. They kind of see what works against them, what doesn't work. And I do think it's hurt them a little bit. And they are a team that obviously relies a good amount on the three ball. They shoot a decent amount of threes. They're good on offense. And again, their defense hasn't been as great recently as it was earlier in the year. So I think teams are starting to catch up with them. And I think Duke is just kind of following the blueprint of what they did last year, where slow start, and now they're starting to ramp it up a little bit. I kind of like back in these teams, Mark, when we get into March, that were preseason, like top 5, top 10. They had a lot of talent. We were high on them coming into the beginning of the year. And then everybody kind of forgets about them. But then towards the end of the year, like they start to play a little better. And you remember like, oh yeah, that team's got a bunch of talent. Like they could do damage.
100%. And I don't know that I even think about it like I'm holding money back on my card, although sometimes I actually have that in mind. But listen, if I see an advantage, regardless of how much I planned on spending or leveraging on a given tournament, if I see an advantage, I'm going to bet it. I love what you just said about like after round 1 and after round 2. I'll give you an example. Mark, speaking of Sam Burns, I'm trying to remember the tournament. It's I can't think of it right now, but I hit him at 80-1 after round 1 just last year. It was a tournament around this time of year. Maybe it was in March now that I think about it. But the long and short of it is he was 80-1. And what I'm looking for in those live markets, this tournament's probably a bad example because it's stacked. By the way, this Sam Burns play, I put it out on Twitter. A lot of people hit this. So it was one of those things where the leaderboard at the top was basically devoid of any big names. There were no Scotty Schefflers at the top. There were no Victor Hovlands. And Sam Burns was 8 strokes back after round 1. And I said to myself, given the tournament that it was kind of potentially like a scoring fest and things of that nature, I said to myself, all right, this is a time to jump on a guy like Sam Burns, who we know can get hot. Just last week, he gained almost 10 strokes ball striking. Like this guy is the prototypical can get hot at any given moment. So yeah, I absolutely think those live opportunities, especially, in fact, honestly, I might graduate to a time where I'm spending in the outright market. I'm spending more with the live outrights than I am the pre-flop outrights. Shout out Gil Alexander, who I think coined the pre-flop phrase. And so I think it's such a good question because the more information we have, especially if we can catch that information early, like through one round, through 18 holes, maybe even through 26, 36 holes, that's actionable information. And there's still so much time left that you can catch long odds.
A dark horse MVP candidate, Ellie De La Cruz of the Cincinnati Reds, plus 8,000 on BetMGM. There's lots of volatility in the profile. He strikes out a lot. He also has ridiculous tools. We're talking about if he hits his 95th percentile outcome, 40-40 upside, 40 plus homers, 40 plus stolen bases. The NL Central is wide open this year. If he has a monster year and the Reds wind up winning that division, he could be in play for NL MVP. Dark horse Cy Young candidate, I'm going to stick in the National League, Bobby Miller of the Dodgers. Everyone's eyes are going to be on Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Tyler Glasnow. I get it. Those guys are awesome. They look like they're going to be, in Yamamoto's case, a really, really good pitcher for the Dodgers and for fantasy baseball. Don't forget about Bobby Miller. I mean, this guy had legit prospect pedigree. He throws 99 miles per hour with the fastball. He has 3 amazing secondary pitches that he throws as well. I could see him taking a big step forward, but performing like a top 15, top 10 starting pitcher in the game, and maybe even being the best pitcher on the Dodgers. The odds there, plus 3,500 on Bobby Miller.